Greetings comrades, Jotsko here and welcome back to Beating the Machine, the series that tries to uncover the hidden answers behind the Submachine series of point-and-click games by Mateusz Skutnik. Today we will be responding to a challenge that Mateusz Skutnik, creator of the Submachine series, put on the members of his fan community. The challenge was presented at the end of his livestream number 33, where he created an inventory of Submachine items, both reworking older familiar items and also introducing new ones. Of the new ones that he made, none of them look too familiar, and several raised some very interesting questions about what is yet to be discovered in the subnet. However, Mateusz Skutnik himself singled out one item in particular, this one, and gave us a parting message at the end of the stream. Quote, "And with this mysterious item I'll leave you, awaiting theories in the comments." And I have my theory ready for you today, but it's too big to fit in the comment section of a YouTube video, which is why I'm making a video out of it. So what exactly is this thing? It's time to find out. Now, unfortunately, the only conclusions that we can draw from this item are from what we see. We haven't been provided with any information about this item apart from its physical appearance. And Mateusz didn't even go to describe it at all in the live chat, so we don't have a lot to go on, but we may have enough. So let's start with making an educated guess as to where this item may have come from, which might hint at its purpose. Historically speaking, as in the last 11 years or so, items in the Submachine games typically tend to have similar designs and are made of similar materials as other items in the game that they appear in, which also tend to reflect the locations that they are found in as well. For example, objects found in Submachine 2, the Lighthouse, tend to be mechanical parts used to power up various sections of the lighthouse. Items in Submachine 4, the Lab, consist of pieces of lab equipment, lab materials, and energy sources, which makes sense since the entirety of Sub 4 takes place in a controlled section of the Outer Rim, which was set up to be a giant lab experiment. The items of Submachine 5 are old and rusted pieces of metal, which accurately reflect the ancient nature of the Root, the first man-made submachine. And like we talked about in the last episode of BTM, we can expect the items of Submachine 6 to be nice and shiny to match the advanced technology of the Edge. This trend even extends into the side games as well, like the crude tools and plates found in Submachine 32 Chambers, which take place in a location covered in references to ancient Mesoamerican civilizations. There's no doubt that items in a Submachine game are designed to complement both each other and their surroundings. So taking a look at this mystery item's composition, we can see that it seems to be made out of some sort of shiny golden material, perhaps some sort of metal, and we can't forget the bright green lines of energy that flow between its two tips. To me, the logical assumption to draw from this seems pretty clear. This item is made of brass and emits green karmic energy based on previous similar appearances of other items and objects in the Submachine series. And if we go with the assumption that these materials are what make up the mystery item, then it's glaringly obvious which Submachine game this item belongs to the most, and that is Submachine 9 the Temple. Looking at the list of 38 items in Submachine 9 the Temple, not including secrets, 16 of them are described as being made of brass, and in addition 7 more look like they could also be easily made of brass. That brings us up to a total of 23 out of 38 items, or about 61% of all the items in the game that are made out of brass. So it seems natural to assume that just by looking at the body of this item, it looks like a perfect match for Submachine 9 the Temple, which means that this item comes from the land of the garden, the pyramid, the Nataraja room, the Shiva section, and the infamous temple itself. And that's not even taking into consideration the magic flowing green lines that arc between the two arms of the object. Any avid subnet explorer can automatically assume that these green lines represent green karmic energy, which throughout all of the games in the franchise is most frequently seen again in Submachine 9. It appears in the karmic water, the karmic plants, and structures that we use to traverse the entirety of the knot, and in the green karma portals found in the pyramid and the temple. In fact, Submachine 9's item roster contains 3 items made of pure green karmic energy. That means that this mysterious item has characteristics similar to 26 of the 38, or about 68% of the items in Submachine 9, which is a significant majority. Great, so we've figured out that this item is most likely from the knot. But now we've turned to the main question: what is its purpose? And for that, we again have to look at the items that we've seen before and make a guess based on what it's most likely to be. The items in Submachine 9, and a good deal of other Submachine games for that matter, can be divided into 2 rough categories based on how they are used. One category consists of items that are simply placed somewhere on screen and serve their purpose to activate something or reveal a hidden compartment or object. These include items like the golden seals of Murtaugh and Elizabeth, the stone eyes, and the brass scarab. I will call these types of items placers, since all you have to do is place them somewhere for their effect to occur. The second category consists of items that are used in ways that suggest they are being held by the player in order to perform their function, and that plays a significant part in their usage. This is the very definition of the word tool, so I'll be calling these items tools. Taking a look at the list of items in Submachine 9, about 19 of these items are called placers, and 19 also could be called tools, so that's exactly half and half. However, we should also take into consideration the fact that the jug of karmic water is used multiple times, both to create placer items and also to create mechanisms that the players assume to need a good pair of hands in order to work with them. So as far as which category category is more frequently represented in this game, it's safe to say that the tools gain the majority. So let's go based on that assumption. We now have a tool that is home to the knot made of good old brass and green karmic energy that is presumably some sort of handheld device. Now, is it actually logical to assume that this device can even be handheld? There's no extended piece of metal or any stick-like protrusion that's on the end, like in the case of the hammer or the lever handle. So how is it held? Now, one possible answer is that some sort of stick is actually present and it's just not shown, like in the case of the portable light crown in Submachine 10, which doesn't actually show the stick part of itself in the inventory in order to save space. But this happens pretty rarely throughout the series. More likely, this middle section is the actual handheld grip. It seems to be roughly shaped in a curve that could fit into somebody's hand, in a grip similar to the grip featured in the Halo franchise's famous energy sword, or a traditional bow and arrow, or a gun used in a side grip fashion. Now, I'm not an expert in grips for tools and weapons, but it seems like it could be a tool that requires a grip where the active end points perpendicularly away from the user's hand, as opposed to, let's say, a wand from Harry Potter, where the user's hand and the active end are parallel to each other. So we've decided on a way to actually hold this item, and as a result we can start to visualize how the player might begin to use it. The player equips it by holding onto the grip with the energy end pointing away from him or her, but then what? What comes next? What can the player actually do with the item at this point? We still haven't answered what this item is actually used for, and the answer comes from one final detail in the item's layout, which contains the two spheres at the end of either curved arm of the mystery item. And like before, anyone who knows remotely anything about the nature of objects and devices in the subnet will immediately recognize this very specific combination of shapes. Yes, that's right, we're talking about the bald ends of the lab portals found in Submachine 4, the lab, and all over the place in Submachine universe, and which are known for transporting the player to different regions and areas of the subnet, and are arguably also the most iconic object of the entire series. If we choose to relate structure to similar structure, we now have the key to figuring out what this mysterious item is used for, and it's somehow involved with transportation. Now let's take a step back and ask ourselves, is this really surprising? Several items and objects that have been used repeatedly in the Submachine series tend to be tied to transportation. We have the lab portals, obviously, but we also have the cipher plates found in Submachine 5, the blue karma portals featured in Submachine 7, the navigators of Submachine 8 and Submachine 3, which transported us between layers, the binary portals of Submachine 10, which also shifted us between layers, and finally the karma portal stabilizer, also of Submachine 10, which of course rebuilt karma portals. The most useful tools of the series have always been about transportation, and since this item is being played up so much by Mateusz Skutnik, it's not too far-fetched of a guess to say that maybe this mysterious item also somehow involves transportation. The question now is how it actually does. This can be answered with looking at the arcs of green karmic energy that race between the two balls. It helps to know a bit of background on the properties of green karmic energy and what its uses are. Through a couple years of research and attempts to draw conclusions, the pastel community shares most of the same opinion that green karmic energy is directly tied to objects that are shown in multiple layers at once, and not just one. Now, there has been some discussion that blue karmic energy, which is usually discussed in terms of blue karma portals, is also present in more than one layer, but there hasn't really been any concrete evidence that supports this. It would be really helpful if blue karma portals didn't just occur in singular locations like the South Garden and the Winter Palace, or even if there was just one blue portal connecting places like the Northern Garden Docks and the Angel Ruins, but alas, no interlayer travel has been evidenced thus far. However, there has been plenty of evidence to support the claim that green karmic energy is more than capable of operating on multiple layers and between layers. This is first evidenced in Submachine 8 with the coordination of beamers and the navigator, and later in Submachine 9 itself with the green karmic plants that show up in multiple layers when other objects simply won't, and most importantly, the green karma portals that will transport the player between locations regardless of what layer the player is in. These green karma portals are what we will be focusing on right now. But wait a second, we started this answer by saying that the structure of the mysterious item reminded us of lab portals, which clearly aren't the same as karma portals. Let's make sure that we're not just jumping from one form of transportation to another. And indeed, if you take a closer look, we're actually not. Karma portals and lab portals are more closely related to each other than you might think. Both of them are means of transporting the player through physical space to a different location, rather than just through the layers like a navigator. And what's more, the way that both of these do so seem to be closely connected with how a light sphere transports the player in Submachine 10, which is via a small packet of light. But that's a deeper topic for another video. However, the connection is there, and since green karma portals actually show up in Sub 9, they are the focus of our answer to what the mysterious item actually does. So what does it actually do? How do we bridge this gap between the mysterious item and the green karma portals? What is this final piece of evidence that joins these two things together and gives us the mysterious item's purpose? And as may be expected, once again we'll turn back to what we know. So let's go back to the famous items that we've talked about before. The lab portals, the cipher plates, the blue karma portals, the navigators, the binary portals, and the karma portal stabilizer. Of these, only these 5 right here are items, and of these 5, only one has a direct connection to karma portals, and that is the portable karma stabilizer from Submachine 10. This device contains blue karmic energy that is able to fully restore dead or depleted blue karma portals by rebuilding the material around the point where the karma portal was created. This item is the only piece of evidence that we have of any item that directly relates to karma portals in the entire Submachine series, and it's an item that effectively restores or recreates blue karma portals. Does that mean it's possible to have an item that could also create green karma portals in the Submachine series? Well, why not? Maybe that is the purpose of our mysterious item, to create green, multi-layer karma portals. Maybe this item is the reason for why we see green karma portals in the pyramid and the temple. And if this is the case, it could explain a couple of questions that I've had on my mind. For example, how did those green karma portals get there in the first place? And my first thought was that Murtaugh had drawn them with his karma arm, but I think that's highly unlikely. He has struggled for so long to make a nice and tidy blue karma portal, and it's hard to find just one that hasn't caused some amount of damage to its surroundings. I doubt that he has ever found the power needed to create a type of karma portal that we know exists in actual multiple layers, and not just one. So maybe this item is a device to help either him or someone else draw those portals in the first place. To my dear fellow subnet explorers, you might be looking at the first instance of a green karma portal creator. A karmic pen, if you will, that draws green karma portals, and a super badass pen at that. So that is my official theory of the purpose of the mystery item, and I want to know what you think of it. Leave a comment below of what you think went well and what didn't go so well in this theory. And if you have theories of your own as to what this item might be, rather than leaving them in the comments below, I encourage you to leave them in the comments section of the livestream video that Mateusz Skutnik made, or in a special thread on Pastel Forum, and I will provide both links in the description below. Until next time, this is Jotsko, hoping to see you again sometime down the road. Bye-bye.